The Sugar Town. Episode 1. A Warm Welcome. Kaupustas is an ordinary small town. Life here is peaceful, free from disasters or major calamities. Like every other town, Kaupustas has its own unique history, but it's rather dull. So, let's start the story where the real excitement begins. It's September, a beautiful, sunny morning. The sun still graces the town with lingering summer warmth. People stroll along the streets, enjoying the pleasant day, and everyone seems happy, except for one boy. His name is Alex. He looks like an ordinary teenager, short black hair, gray eyes, and a tall but well-proportioned frame. His outfit is nothing out of the ordinary. A t-shirt featuring the logo of his favorite band, paired with dark jeans. Alex recently moved into the oldest house in town with his mother Samantha, who had just accepted a job at the best and, unfortunately, the only school in Kaupustas. Samantha is 36, of average build and height. She has a calm demeanor, but radiates cheerfulness and energy. While she was thrilled about the changes in their lives, Alex wasn't nearly as enthusiastic. That morning, he sat in the corner of their still empty kitchen, motionless on the black and white checkered marble floor, surrounded by walls painted in deep blue. The previous owners of the house had left all the kitchen utensils, pots, pans, spoons, teaspoons, plates, and cups neatly arranged in the wooden cabinets. All that remained was to unpack their own dishes and food, brought from Alex's previous home. Bright morning light streamed through the grimy wooden window, illuminating just how dusty the kitchen was. Even the glass lampshade hanging directly above the table was coated in a fine layer of dust. Alex sat idly, absent-mindedly playing with a few stray ants. It was just him, a few boxes of dishes, and the ants for company. When Samantha walked in, he looked up at her and asked, "Mom, why did we have to move here? I don't like this town. Everything feels strange." "What do you mean, strange? Why?" Samantha glanced around, realizing she hadn't noticed Alex sitting there at first. When she finally spotted him, Alex gave a small wave and continued, "People don't usually look like the ones living here. They smile too much. Maybe they've eaten too much sugar, or maybe they're just happy. I don't like this town." "Oh, don't be such a child. Just think about it. Tomorrow you'll go to school, make new friends, much better ones than those kids." Samantha picked up one of the boxes near Alex and placed it on the old oak kitchen table. "All right, Mom, I get it. You never liked my friends, and you never wanted to work at a big school. That's why we moved here, to this ridiculously small town with only one school." "You know that's not true," she said, pulling out a pocket knife to open the box. "Okay, to be honest, I really didn't like your friends, but they were just using you. I want you to start fresh and find real friends. And this town isn't that small. Did you see how many shops they have?" As she unpacked the box, removing the packing material, Samantha took out a cup and inspected it carefully. Finding no cracks, she filled it with tap water, sniffed it, then took a cautious sip. Satisfied, she began drinking more confidently. Still sitting on the floor, watching his mother, Alex continued the conversation. "Yes, but even the smallest shopping mall in any normal city is bigger than all those shops put together, so that doesn't count. All right, then think about me. I have an amazing opportunity to work here. Now I'll be the principal of your new school. Isn't that great? I still can't believe this job was offered to me so unexpectedly. It's so much better than being a teacher at a school where no one respects you. I think you're just trying to run away from all the problems that came up. And the worst part is, wherever you decide to run, I have to come along." Samantha set the cup on the table, then sat down on the floor next to Alex and gently ruffled his hair. "Sometimes you seem too smart to be 14. It's a shame your father can't be with us right now. I hope his expedition is successful." She sighed Then, after a brief pause, stood up and said, "Anyway, we have a lot to do, so get off the floor and head to the living room. I need help moving the sofa to the corner." Alex got up and followed his mother into the spacious but dimly lit living room. Due to the unusual shape of the house, the outer wall was curved and almost entirely made of windows. 4 large windows stretched from corner to corner, floor to ceiling, but the heavy tapestry curtains covering them barely let in any sunlight. Even with the curtains pulled back, the view outside wasn't much to admire. The window panes were nearly covered in moss. The other walls were adorned with old paintings by unknown artists, their true colors hidden beneath layers of dust. The intricately carved fireplace mantel held porcelain figurines, a hunter, a mounted soldier, and a pair of ladies in long dresses holding fans. The centerpiece of the room was a grand crystal chandelier, which, despite going 100 years without cleaning, still looked as if it had been borrowed from the English royal palace. The dark wooden floors were covered with old, faded rugs. In the middle of the room, standing atop one of them, was a handsome coffee table, and not far from it, a sofa. Alex hadn't expected the sofa to be so heavy. As he tried to move it, his foot slipped on the parquet, and he fell to the floor. Samantha looked at him and said sarcastically, "Well done, Alex. What's next? Are you going to try breaking through the wall with your head, or maybe eating a light bulb? This sofa seems to be nailed to the floor. I can't imagine why, unless the previous owners were so attached to it that they were afraid someone might steal it." "Then why did you ask me to move it?" Alex shouted, unable to contain his frustration. "I thought you knew about that," Samantha replied, laughing at her son's heated reaction. "Well, enough playing around. Get up and hand me some pliers or any other tool we can use to pull out the nails." "Where are we supposed to find tools?" Try looking in one of your father's boxes. I think he should have at least a few." Samantha pointed to a few nearby boxes. "Well, I doubt that. Scientists like him don't usually use ordinary tools," Alex said with a smirk. "All right, then I'll check out the basement. Maybe the previous owners left something useful down there. I might even find some tools." Samantha grabbed a flashlight and descended into the basement, taking the old creaky stairs located behind the main staircase leading to the second floor. Meanwhile, Alex sat on the unmoving sofa and started flipping through a builder magazine. It was filled with schematics, technical drawings, and articles about woodwork, construction, and home renovation, far from the kind of reading material he usually enjoyed. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Alex set the magazine aside and rushed to open the door. "It's probably our new neighbors, coming to introduce themselves," he thought. But as soon as he opened the door, he was met not with friendly faces, but with a man dressed entirely in black. In one hand, he held a sleek black umbrella. In the other, a small black briefcase, the kind used by lawyers and businessmen to carry important documents. The man stood there silently, staring at Alex with an unsettling intensity. His gaze was sharp, calculating, like a wolf eyeing its prey. "Is your mother home?" the man asked with a smile. From the very first moment, Alex didn't like him. There was something off about him, something unnatural, as if he carried a hidden agenda. But Alex didn't lose his composure. Instead, he responded with a question of his own. "Who are you?" "One of the men in black. Sorry, we don't have any aliens. Goodbye." He moved to close the door, but at that very moment, his mother emerged from the basement, carrying a toolbox. As soon as she saw the mysterious visitor, recognition flashed across her face. "Andrew! What a surprise. Come in," Samantha said with a warm smile. The man stepped inside, and Samantha turned to Alex. "Alex, this is my good friend, Andrew. Andrew, this is my son, Alex. I hope he treated you kindly." "Yes, he greeted me warmly," Andrew replied, flashing another smile. but Alex could tell it was fake. He returned the expression, just as insincere. "Andrew, would you like some tea?" Samantha asked politely. "Yes, thank you," the man said, stepping further into the house, making his way toward the living room and kitchen. "Great. Alex, take this toolbox and keep working on the sofa. It would be really nice if you could finally move it, all right?" Samantha handed the old, dusty tools to Alex and headed into the kitchen with the strange guest. However, instead of getting to work, Alex remained where he was. After a brief moment of thought, he decided the sofa nailed to the floor would still be there tomorrow. There was no rush to move it now. Quietly, he set the toolbox on the floor near the stairs and stealthily approached the now closed kitchen door. He pressed his ear against it, trying to listen in on their conversation. But his mother was busy moving boxes of dishes around, the dull clatter making it nearly impossible to hear anything clearly. How rude! Mom is handling all those heavy boxes, and he's just sitting there, Alex thought, growing more suspicious. After a few minutes, he finally heard their voices. "So, why did you decide to visit us so suddenly?" Samantha asked while preparing tea and Alex's favorite oatmeal cookies with white chocolate. "I just wanted to see you," the mysterious man said calmly, his eyes fixed on the swift movements of Samantha's hands as she prepared the light snacks. "Come on, what's the real reason for your visit? You never drop by just for the sake of it. Especially not just to see me," she said, with a knowing smile. Andrew remained silent for a moment. Then, with a faint but serious smile, he finally spoke. "I hope you haven't forgotten about our little agreement." "No, of course not." Samantha's face darkened, and her gentle smile disappeared. "Let's talk about it." At first, Alex simply listened, trying to make sense of their conversation. But as his curiosity grew, he leaned toward the keyhole, hoping to get a better view. After a few minutes, his legs began to go numb from standing in an awkward position. Quietly, he slipped away, grabbed one of the boxes from the living room, and placed it by the door. Settling onto it, he peered through the keyhole again. Not long after, he saw something that filled him with outrage. "That jerk, he's eating my cookies, my favorite ones. There's no way I'll find these in this tiny town," Alex muttered under his breath. Afraid of being overheard, he quickly composed himself and refocused on their conversation. "I was hoping that you would forget about all this," Samantha said softly. "And I was hoping you would do as we planned. Remember? You promised." Andrew's voice turned harsh, nearly a shout. Samantha glared at him, her expression filled with disgust. Tears welled up in her eyes, but after a moment of silence, she responded just as fiercely. "I shouldn't have let you in here. I actually hoped you might have changed, but of course not. You're the same as always. You only think about yourself and plot ways to ruin other people's lives. You're not a person, you're a monster." Andrew sat indifferently, sipping his tea. He didn't even look at Samantha. When she finished speaking, he simply smiled and asked, "Did you talk about it with Daniel?" He seemed completely unfazed by Samantha's anger. Taking another sip of his tea, still steaming hot, he waited for her response. "Not yet," Samantha admitted, staring sadly into her cup of caramel tea. She had never been able to stay angry at the people close to her. Even when she wanted to, her anger faded too quickly. "Why not? You said you'd tell him before his expedition." Andrew's gaze narrowed, his eyes cold and sharp, like a snake's. A vicious, poisonous snake. "I know, but he was so happy when they told him he was allowed to go. I just couldn't bring up the subject of you and Alex. I'll tell him as soon as he gets back, I promise. But it will really upset him. The time with this boy means as much to him as it does to me. We already have plans for this summer." Samantha spoke so quickly, so anxiously, that her words nearly blurred together. A few large tears slipped from her eyes, landing softly on the table. She kept staring at her cup, unable to lift her gaze to the man sitting across from her, the man who was determined to bring misery to her family. At that moment, she felt utterly powerless. No matter how strong she was, the person sitting in front of her was stronger. "Don't worry, Samantha. It won't take long. Just a few weeks." Andrew's voice was calm, reassuring, even convincing. Anyone else would have believed him. His tone carried the weight of absolute truth. But Samantha knew him better than anyone, and she knew one thing for certain. His words were nothing more than a simple, dirty lie. "I'm not worried about how long it will take. I'm worried about what you're planning to do with him. This could be very dangerous for Alex." Whenever Samantha spoke about her son, her voice softened instinctively, even when she was angry. Outside the door, Alex furrowed his brows, struggling to make sense of what he was hearing. What on earth are they talking about? What plans? Dangerous. But he kept listening. Andrew took another sip of tea, his voice carrying an air of casual confidence. "I'm sure Alex will be fine. Even better than he is now. He'll learn to survive." There was a slight tone of pride in his words. Samantha, however, was unmoved. "Andrew, I know what you're planning. Don't think I'm stupid. I told you clearly, it's too dangerous for Alex. I won't let you harm my son." Andrew's expression didn't change. Instead, he leaned back slightly, his voice calm but cutting. "Wake up. He's not even really your son. And he's incredibly foolish. I've heard him sitting outside the door, eavesdropping on us this whole time." Samantha's eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" She abruptly stood up, walked to the door, and flung it open. There, sitting by the door, was Alex, muttering something under his breath. "Alex, how could you do this? Don't you know it's rude to listen in on other people's conversations? That's so impolite." Alex looked up at his mother, unfazed by her anger. "I just wanted to know what you were talking about," he said simply. Andrew smiled. "We were talking about the good old times." But Alex wasn't convinced. "But I heard that." "Enough, Andrew. I don't want to talk to you at all right now. And you, go to your room. I don't want to talk to you either." Samantha's voice was sharp with fury. She positioned herself between the strange man who had so unexpectedly entered their home and her son, a clear barrier of protection. Alex wanted to say something more, but he held back. Instead, he simply stood up from the box he had been sitting on and walked toward the stairs, climbing up to the second floor. He knew something was wrong. His mother shouldn't have yelled at him. She never did. But he could feel the tension in her voice, see the strain in her expression. He wasn't sad. He wasn't even angry. He just knew. So, without protest, he did as he was told. Meanwhile, Andrew remained in the kitchen, unbothered. He continued drinking his tea, munching on cookies one after another, as if the heated argument had never happened. Once Alex disappeared from view, Andrew turned to Samantha with a smirk. "Oh, you're acting like a real mother," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Samantha's eyes burned with anger. "I am a real mother," she shot back, her tone dead serious. Andrew leaned forward, his expression darkening. "Then I am his uncle. Why won't you let me be with him?" Samantha didn't hesitate. "Because you want to hurt him, and I know that as soon as you get the chance, you will." Her voice was firm, unwavering. "And you're not his uncle. To him, you're just another stranger. After all these years, you're a stranger to me as well. Stranger or not, I will always be your older brother, Samantha. And as your older brother, I have the right to visit you and see how you're doing. We haven't had a proper conversation in ages. Let's just talk as siblings. We don't have to talk about Alex if you don't want to," Andrew insisted. "So, tell me, sister, how are you? I see you've moved into a nice house." Samantha didn't like this. She didn't trust his sudden interest, but despite her unease, the conversation shifted. They started talking about their childhood, old friends, and family. She found herself remembering things she had long forgotten. All the while, Alex sat alone in his room. That man is so strange. And why hasn't Mom ever mentioned him before? And they were talking about me. And Dad. Alex's thoughts spiraled, fixated on the mysterious guest. He spent the entire evening, and nearly the whole night, turning the conversation over in his head. Sleep eluded him. Eventually, he gave up and went downstairs to get a drink of water. And what did he find? His mother was still talking with Andrew. They were now sitting in the living room, on the very sofa he had spent the whole day trying to move. A surge of frustration hit him. He had been shut away in his room all evening while those two sat downstairs, reminiscing about the good old times and other things he couldn't even begin to understand. Without thinking, he blurted out, "Do you know what time it is? Don't you have your own home?" His words were sharp, aimed directly at Andrew. "Alex, be polite to our guest. Where are your manners?" Samantha tried to sound firm, but she was never a good actress. Her words came out forced, like bad dialogue from an old movie. "It's okay, Samantha. The boy is right. It's getting late. It was nice talking with you. Good night." Andrew stood up, grabbed his briefcase and umbrella, and left without another word. Once they were alone, Samantha turned to Alex, this time genuinely angry. "Don't you dare do that again." "But Mom..." "No, no, no. I don't want to hear another word. That's enough for today. Don't ever talk to that man like that again. You need to be much more careful with strangers." She sighed, rubbing her temple. "Now go to bed. Tomorrow is your first day at your new school." "And yours, too," Alex muttered. "Alex!" "All right, I'm going." Alex returned to his room, knowing tomorrow would be an unusual day for him, and an important one for his mother. He tried to get at least a few hours of sleep, though his thoughts refused to settle. Meanwhile, Samantha stayed downstairs. As she washed the dishes, she quietly murmured to herself, "What should I do to protect my son? Poor Alex. He has no idea what kind of trouble we're in." End of part 1. A warm welcome.